Hey guys, Victor here. I'm finally back from my hiatus, and I figured what better way to kick it off than with a return to Tearlament, as it's pretty much like one of the main staples of this channel. And for the specific variant we're going to be focusing on, it's going to be Fiendsmith Tearlament, which it's pretty new compared to like all the other builds that I've showcased previously on this channel, obviously because the entire Fiendsmith engine was just recently released in Infinite Forbidden, and the entire point of the deck is basically just to use the Fiendsmith stuff to make Beatrice, as it's literally an auto Beatrice pretty much every single time you open up with it, and from there we just snowball into our Tearlament cards and we just go as hard as possible. So with that out of the way, let's just jump straight into it. Now, as always, we're going to be starting off with the monster lineup first, so we're of course going to be playing 3 Tearlaments Reinoheart. The entire deck basically revolves around this card. Whether you're normal summoning it or special summoning it, you're pretty much going to have access to it at some point during your combos. So I definitely think you should be playing 3 just so you can do it more frequently. But there can be an argument made for just like playing 2 if you want to try and like tech your deck out a little bit more. But if you care about consistency the most, then you definitely play this card at 3. Then to accompany your 3 Reinohearts, you play your 3 Tearlaments Kashtira. On summon, it mills 3 either from your deck or your opponent's deck, but you're pretty much always just going to be milling your own deck. And then when it's sent to the graveyard by card effect, it mills 2 more. So just another key consistency piece along with Reinoheart. Then for the 1-of tiers, you play the 1-of Merrli, the 1-of Havnis, and the 1-of Scheiren. We're only allowed 1 of each, so we play 1 of each. But like I said, pretty straightforward, nothing too crazy. Just basically just like the standard amounts that you play, because that's all we can play. And then for the Fiendsmith stuff, we're going to be playing 3 Fiendsmith Engravers. So this card is basically taking the place of Destiny Hero Malicious in the fact that it's a level 6, which means that it's pretty much going to be used solely to make Beatrice to ensure that our plays are as consistent as possible. And then not only that, but like if you go past turn 1, this card is pretty fantastic at just helping out your grind game, as it's able to recycle your other light fiends in order to special summon itself. Like I said, it's a 6, so you have Beatrice plays. It's just like in general, it does so much for the deck. So you definitely got to play 3 of it if you're playing it. Then for the final 3 of monster in the deck, while you don't need it, it does help you out a lot, and that is going to be Mulcharmy Purulia, which we were playing at 3. So I'm terrible at winning die rolls, so something like this helps mitigate that by allowing us to draw anywhere between like 1 and 3 cards typically the moment it's activated, just because especially if you're playing it like Snake Eyes, for example, right? You can draw anywhere between 1 to 3 cards pretty easily with the Popular Summon, the normal summon of the Snake Eye Ash, and then the Diabellstar, the Black Witch. And there's just so many rogue matchups where this card is just extremely helpful. But on top of that, this card has a couple of other uses as well. 1, it's a water, which means you can use it to make Bahamut Toad. And 2, it's an aqua, so you can fuse with it into Kaleido-heart. Just little things like that go a long way in helping you win the game. But if you can't afford it or you just don't want to play it, that's also perfectly valid as well. It's not like it's going to make or break your deck. And there's plenty of other choices that you can play that also help you just accomplish your game plan. I really enjoy this card for what it does for the most part, which is helping you thin out your deck by drawing you cards. Then for the other monsters, we're still playing 2 Beast King of the Swamps. So much like Purulia, it's a water aqua, so you can use it to make Kaleido-heart, Bahamut Toad, all that. But with the addition of Beasting of the Swamps, that allows us to pretty much access cards like Rulkaloss a lot more easily. And there's a lot of cards currently that, whether it's like Nibiru or the Bystials, or just as like a general good card to stop your opponent from playing, that Rulkaloss is like oddly weirdly good against, or maybe not too weirdly, but it's solid. And yeah, just having that extra option from Beast King of the Swamps is invaluable. But if you don't want to play Rulkaloss, there's tons of other options as well, much like with the Purulias. For example, you could play like a Shadal engine if you just want to stun your opponent out with like cards like Winda, or just little things like that go a long way. But I prefer Beast King of the Swamps just because I love playing Rulkaloss. Then for a bunch of 1-ofs that we play, we're playing the 1 Bystial Magnamhut, the 1 Bystial Druiswurm, and the 1 Bystial Baldrake. So these are darks, which means that you can combo more easily into Bahamut Toad, which this is a Tearlament deck, which means that that's pretty much like our bread and butter at this point, right? We try to get to Toad as often as possible to help ensure that our plays don't get stopped as frequently, and that we can stop our opponent's plays more frequently. But these do a couple of other things as well, because much like Engraver, it's a level 6, which means that you can make Beatrice a lot more easily, or just having them as like a general extender, right? Because we are playing the Fiendsmith, that means we're playing cards like Moon of the Closed Sky or Closed Heaven, whatever they change the name to. So just having 2 monsters on the board is basically full combo every single time, and cards like these, like the Bystials, just help you get there a lot more easily. So And not only that, but whether you're using them on yourself or your opponent, they're just really solid all around. Because even if you're playing against decks like Snake Eyes, they do play Fiendsmith cards as well. So you could hit like a Lurrie, you could hit an Engraver, you could try to hit Sequence when it's in the grave, trying to equip itself to or trying to equip itself to Desirae. You know, there's so many uses that these cards give you. So I definitely think that Bystials are more than likely going to be like a mainstay, at least for now. And then for the other cards, we play the one Fabled Lurrie. It's okay, you know, this is basically just going to be what you search off a Tract and then go for full Fiendsmith combo. And it's not a terrible normal summon, but it's not our ideal normal summon. And then for the last card, we're just playing one Mudora, the Sword Oracle. There's no Kaleido in this deck just because I'm pretty much built it for the most part with the intention of going second constantly, and these cards are so bad going second, I'm not going to lie to you. But we still have them in there just in case we do end up going first every once in a while, which, you know, sometimes we win die rolls, usually we don't, but sometimes we do. And you don't want to be caught without a shuffler just because there's so many decks that are just really graveyard reliant. And even if you're not playing a graveyard reliant deck, being able to shuffle back your own resources to help you play on the following turns is just invaluable. And with that, that's the monster lineup, and now we can finally move on to the spell and trap portion. Now, when it comes to the spell and trap lineup, it's going to be pretty similar to most of the other variants, and it's not for like lack of originality. It's just that the way that Tearlaments plays, you pretty much just want to max out on all the good cards that you can. So as a result, we're going to be playing 3 Primeval Planet Perlereino still. This card's phenomenal. You know, on activation, it adds any tier card. It boosts all your tiers and your fusions by 500 attack. If a tier monster gets shuffled back to the deck, you get a pop a card. This card, it does so much of the deck, much in the form of like Reinoheart or Tier Cash, or this upcoming card being Tearlaments Scheiren, where if you have a face-up Tearlaments monster and either you or your opponent decides to normal or special summon, you get to mill 3 cards on the top of your deck, and then for the rest of this turn, all your opponent's monsters lose 500 attack. So the 500 attack is permanent for the rest of this turn. Even if they manage to get rid of Scream, they're still going to be lowered. But that honestly doesn't really matter. What does matter is just being able to mill 3 cards during your turn and your opponent's turn pretty consistently. And, you know, we just value milling as much as possible, which is why we play 3 Scream, 3 Planet, 3 Tier Cash, whatever. Just because these cards really do so much for the deck that'll just allow you to continue to play the game that you want to play. And if it's sent to the graveyard by card effect, you also get to search your deck for any Tearlaments trap. So, you know, pretty solid. And then for the final 3 of spell, we're going to be playing 3 Triple Tactics Talent. This card, I don't know what needs to be said about it. It's just a phenomenal card whether you're going first or second, because if you get hand trapped at any point, as long as it's not during the draw phase or standby phase, you can, you know, rip your opponent's hand apart. You can draw 2 to fix your not bad hands, but your slightly worse hands. Or if your opponent like Nibiru's you, for example, you can take that and then continue to just full Fiendsmith combo anyways. This card just has so many uses, but I don't know if it's the best one to play, just because there are cards like Forbidden Droplet that you can make an argument for, especially if you're going second, where you just go Droplet and then you send a bunch of cards like your Mudoras or your Trivikarmas or whatever, and you just shut off your opponent's entire field. And maybe you don't even have to play one or the other. You could play both, right? Take out like the Mulcharmies, put in 3 Droplet and play it with the 3 talents. But it's up to you, honestly, and it's up to what your like local metagame is like based around for the most part. But even so, you know, still a phenomenal card, but it's definitely changeable if you want to. Then for the rest of the spells, we're just playing a bunch of good 1-ofs. So we're playing the 1 Fiendsmith's Tract. This is typically what you're going to be searching off your Engraver. And by typically, I mean it's the only target that you're searching off your Engraver. Because we don't play Sanct, even though I really like the card, I don't really think it's all that necessary, as opposed to Tract, where you activate Tract, you add Lurrie, discard Lurrie, then you go full Fiendsmith combo. But Tract has additional value in this deck, as if your hand is not normal summon reliant, right? Because you can typically tell if you're going to be normal summoning during your turn. You can activate your Tract, and then you can add the Lurrie, but you're not discarding the Lurrie. Instead, we're going to be discarding other cards such as Sulliek, Trivikarma, Reinoheart, and just being able to open up our Tearlaments engine without committing or normal summon, and then it's honestly just invaluable. And not only that, by opening up our Tearlaments engine and not wasting our normal summon on that, we can still go full Fiendsmith combo. So you can very quickly just overwhelm your opponents and win the game, hopefully easily, but you know, that's just not always the case. Then for the other 1-of spells, we're still playing the 1 Tearlaments Grief. You know, it's emergency teleport or Foolish Burial, depending on how you want to use it for any of your tier monsters. Then you play the 1 Foolish Burial Goods and the 1 Foolish Burial. Pretty solid cards. We're also playing the 1 Call by the Grave to go with our 3 Triple Tactics Talent, just because this format is super hand trap heavy. And even though it's super hand trap heavy, there are still a lot of really powerful cards in the graveyard, like Promethean Princess, Flamberge, you know, things like that that you can hit with Call by the Grave to help ensure that you're gonna have like a smoother time breaking a board or just preventing a board. So yeah, definitely gotta play the one. And then for the final spell card, we're playing One Reasoning. So this card is just a funny card. I don't know if it's that great because let's face it, a majority of the time you're not going to open it. You're typically going to mill it. But if you do open it, things definitely get out of hand really fast just because there are so many different levels in this deck. You know, you have level 1s covered by Lurrie, level 2s by Merrli, level 3 with Havnis. You have like a million level 4s. We don't have any level 5s, but that's fine. We have 6s in the form of Bystials and our Fiendsmiths. We have 7s for tier caches, and then we don't have level 8s. But being able to cover out 6 out of the first 8 levels ensures that your opponent's pretty much never going to have the correct answer to call, and you're probably going to hit something every single time. And not to mention that you're going to be able to trigger all the tier spells and traps that you're going to be milling along the way. So yeah, this card, it's pretty cool when it is able to resolve, but it's not gonna happen very often. So yeah, I just wanted to try it out. It looked fun, it's promising, and yeah, I love it. And then that's it for the spell lineup. And then for the traps, we play the 2 Tearlaments sulliek and the 1 Trivikarma. Pretty safe, pretty standard, you know, it's fine. And with that, that's the spell and trap lineup, and it's also the main deck. 40 cards like always. Now we can finally move on to the extra deck. Now when it comes to the extra deck, I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty hard finding 15 cards I wanted to play just because, not that there weren't a lot of choices, but just that there were so many choices that I wanted to include. And it's pretty difficult because the Fiendsmith engine itself takes up like 5 to 6 slots depending on what you play. So as we go through the extra deck, I'm going to point out cards that I feel like are cuttable. And then from there, you can like make your own decisions on what cards you want to play, you know, because like I said, there are so many different choices that you can make. Even so, we're going to be starting off with the fusion monsters first. So as a result, we're going to be playing the 1 Mudragon of the Swamp, the 1 Garura, Wings of Resonant Life, and the 1 Predaplant Dragostapelia, commonly referred to as the Super Poly targets, even though we do not play Super Poly in the main deck. These cards are still made pretty easily, especially the Mudragon and the Dragostapelia. Garura, not as much, so if you want to start with cards to cut, I'd probably start with Garura. But even so, like, it does come up, especially like because you're not going to always be lucky, and you are going to find yourself in situations where you end up milling multiple of the tier fusion summoners. So just having something like Garura to be able to shuffle those back. And then not only that, Garura happens to be a level 6 that also draws a card, so it has like a lot of synergy with your Bystials or your Fiendsmith cards to make Beatrice a lot more easily. But yeah, like I said, if you want to cut something from here, I'd definitely start with Garura. I feel like the other two are pretty much mandatory just to be able to recycle your resources. Then for the other fusions, we're playing the 1 Necroquip Princess. This card is insane. It's pretty much allows every single Fiendsmith card, or just light fiend, so I'm including Lurrie into it, to be able to give you an instant access to Beatrice, as all you have to do is ensure that you summon out your Requiem. Requiem will get your Engraver from deck. You equip your Engraver with Requiem. Then you make Necroquip Princess by sending both of those cards to the graveyard. Then your Engraver's graveyard effect can activate to bring itself back, and then boom. From there, you can either make like a sequence to fusion summon, or you can just go straight for the Beatrice. It's honestly up to you and how your hand shapes up. But yeah, this card, I can't believe they made it. It's such a crazy TCG exclusive. Then for the other fusion monsters, we're playing the 1 Fiendsmith Lacrima. This is going to be your main time card, just because this deck does take a while to play. Just because it can pretty much go on forever, right? Depending on how you mill, what your opponent's playing, where you get hand trapped, things of that nature. And this card is just insane for what it does, because not only does it burn for 1200 while recycling a key resource from your graveyard, when this card is summoned, you can reborn or add you're basically just going to be doing Engraver every single time, right? So you summon Lacrima, you target the Engraver. If you haven't used Tract yet, you add it to your hand. If you have used Tract, you special summon it. And then from there, you can make more Link plays, you can do more Fusion plays, or you can just make Beatrice again because you're going to have 2 level 6s. But yeah, this card, it's just insane, the value that it provides you with. And then for the final Fiendsmith card, that's for the Fusion Monster, we're playing the 1 Fiendsmith Desirae. Much like Garura, this is probably another card that can honestly be cut, but I really like what it offers for this deck, just because it gives you a way to beat Dark Ruler no more consistency, right? Because let's face it, you're typically always going to have something like a Tearlaments sulliek face down. So if your opponent says Dark Ruler you just go chain sulliek, and then you're going to chain Desirae. And since we're not burning through our sequences pretty early, we're saving it for like after we've done our Beatrice plays, for example. This card is honestly just, it's pretty easy to make. But yeah, I don't know. I just really enjoy the utility that it offers you, in the way that it's able to just straight up beat cards that would otherwise beat your deck. But much like Garura, like I said, it's cuttable if you don't want to play it. And then for the Tearlament fusions, we're playing the one Rulkaloss and the one Kaleido-heart. You know, Rulkaloss negates special summons for the most part, and then Kaleido-heart bounces, it's foolishes. These cards are insane. But for the third card that I could honestly consider cutting, if you don't want to play like the Beastking of the Swamps, then that means you can just cut Rulkaloss automatically. But I wanted to include it anyways. But yeah, and for cards that you can fit in that I haven't mentioned, right? There's cards like Sprite Sprint, Appaloosa, Time Thief Redoer, all of cards that were previously staples, but honestly aren't the end of the world if you decide not to play them anymore, can be included in place of these cards. I guess that should also be like a spoiler alert for cards that I'm not playing, but whatever. But yeah, that's it for the fusion monsters, and then we can focus on the link monsters. So we have our Fiendsmith Requiem, which, you know, it summons out Engraver from deck, and then it gives you X to your Necroquip Princess, which is a 1-card Beatrice. Then we also played the Fiendsmith Sequence, which is going to be able to allow you to fusion summon using monsters from your graveyard. But the cool thing about Sequence is that it says special summon a Fiend fusion monster from your extra deck. So that means you don't have to summon your Fiendsmiths, right? Say you've milled a bunch of your tier monsters and you've already used their effects. You can use Sequence's effect to shuffle them back to the deck and then summon Kaleido-heart, because Kaleido-heart just happens to be a Fiend monster. So, you know, there's a lot of really cute things that Sequence can allow us to do. Then we're also been playing the one Moon of the Closed Sky. This is basically just, you know, full Nightmare Mermaid combo. Any two monsters allows us to have access to our Requiem, which in turn gives us full Fiendsmith combo, which means that every two monsters equals Beatrice automatically. So you'd be stupid not to play this card. And then for the final lake monster, we're playing the one SP Little Knight. It's fine, even though we're not playing something like IP Masquerena to summon it during our opponent's turn. Just being able to like drop this and ensure that you don't get blown out by cards like evenly matched during the battle phase is just invaluable. So yeah, definitely gotta include the one SP Little Knight. And then it does also help you break your opponent's boards when you go second. So card really good. And then we can finally focusing on the Exceed monsters for the last part, being the one Totally Awesome Omni Negate that adds back resources from your graveyard. As when it's sent to the grave, you can add back any water monster. So it adds itself, Tear Cash, Reinoheart, whatever. We have the one Bahamut Shark that we make it, that allows us to summon out the Toad. And then for the final Exceed monster, we're playing the one Beatrice, Lady of the Eternal. This is literally the guard card of the extra deck. Our entire deck is focused around making Beatrice. So yeah, you know, all I can say is enjoy it while you can. And with that, that's the Tearlaments deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.